Most first-time software founders spend way too much time stressing over the legal side of things. Do I need an LLC? How do I split equity? Do I need contracts for developers? What if someone steals my idea? What about App Store compliance? Do not stress anymore, because in this video, I'm going to break it down and share my experience building multiple app companies. We'll cover the essential legal and business setup for software founders, from equity to contracts to App Store rules. And I am even going to give you a turnkey solution to all of this, so you can stop worrying about it and you can start focusing on what really matters, building and scaling your business. Having exited multiple software companies, I cannot express how important this is. To keep your business compliant, to keep your books clean, it all matters, and you should plan for the long term, because that should be your ultimate goal. Building a successful company, scaling it, and then exiting for the big bucks. And if I didn't set all of this up correctly, and spoiler alert, when I first started, I didn't. So I was scrambling to get it all done. So this is so important. So be sure to watch the entire video. Let's jump into it. Now look, I have to preface this. I am not a lawyer. This is not legal or financial advice. This is my experience, what I recommend doing, and how I've operated in my past companies. This is for entertainment purposes only. Now, with that being said, let's get into it. I have this entire document in the description of the video, so go give it a download. I'll send it over to you for free. It's going to contain the entire setup and stack that we need. You really only need two tools. You need Doula to set up your LLC, keep up with your taxes, and keep your bookkeeping nice and clean. And you need Termly to auto-generate your terms of service and your privacy policy. We're going to be going through the stack that you will need. Do you need an LLC? Do you actually need to incorporate? Choosing the right entity for a business, from LLC to C Corp to S Corp, managing your taxes and bookkeeping, contracts for developers, designers, and contractors in general, equity ownership and the basics, and the App Store compliance and legal pitfalls. Now look, this is a lot, but we're going to go through it quickly here and cover each one. So, do you need an LLC? The short answer is no. But I highly recommend you create one, and here's why. I started PuffCount out under my own name, under my personal name in the App Store. I did not have an LLC. I just built the app and my name was right under it. Being the young, stupid founder that I was, I thought that was cool. But when I started to really scale the business, I ran into so many roadblocks because I didn't have an LLC set up for my business. My books were an absolute mess. I wasn't able to apply for funding when I needed to scale on paid ads. And once the business started scaling, I understood that I was eventually going to exit this business. And it's so much harder and more complicated to do that if you don't have the proper entity set up. So with that being said, yes and no. Do you absolutely need one to start an app? No. You can launch an app under your own personal name, but I highly recommend that you set up a business. And look, at the end of the day, this is what I did. It was easy to swap over to a business developer account. All it took was a phone call to App Store Connect. I was able to call them, speak to them, and they swapped over my business. No problem. I provided my business documentation, and they did it honestly very quickly in like 48 hours. So shout out to Apple for that. But it's just so much easier to start with an LLC first. But even before then, look, when you're first working on a business, this is like buying a domain name without working on the idea first, right? If you're only at the idea phase and you're super early on, focus on actually building the company, right? Like, take the first step into building the company before you go buy an LLC and a domain name. Don't buy an LLC for something that you're not fully confident that you are actually going to build, right? So validate your idea first. Make sure that you're actually going to build this thing, and then buy the LLC, and then buy the domain. Pros to having an LLC or an entity in general: it's easier to navigate, you have liability protection, you have business banking, cleaner accounting, and you have access to funding options like Bravo. Bravo will pay you out your App Store earnings every single day, and it makes scaling so much easier. So you need to check out Bravo, and without a business entity, you cannot be a Bravo customer. Okay, the cons to setting up an LLC. It can be a little bit slow. It's not too slow. It'll take about a week. You need to set up an LLC. You need a DUNS number to get your app on the App Store if you're set up as a business. And again, LLCs are like domain names. Do not buy one before you actually start working on the business. And by the way, I'm going to show you exactly how you can set up an LLC very, very quickly and have everything handled for you, from bookkeeping to taxes to LLC to your registered agent with the government that your entity is built in. We're going to do all that through Doula, which is my recommended tool here. Okay, choosing the right entity. Doola is actually the best way to set up a company. They let you set up multiple companies. They handle absolutely everything for you, from setting up your business bank account to taxes to bookkeeping to everything. And they actually let you set up an LLC, a C Corp, or an S Corp. Which one of these should I choose, do you ask? Well, choosing the right entity is very important. The way your entity is structured will affect the way that you can raise money, the way you give equity to your employees, and ultimately how you operate as a business, right? At the very top here, we have an LLC, simple, flexible, and great for indie founders. This is what I built PuffCount, my first mobile app, under. And this is great for early stage apps. It's very simple, very clean to set up. I was the only owner of PuffCount, so an LLC was the right choice for me. But with my new company, Posted, I have a bigger team. It's a bigger company. And I expect that we're gonna get funding in the near future. So I set up Posted as a C Corp, right? Because I plan on raising venture capital at some point, bringing investors on, and I'm also giving my employees options in the form of stock. So for that reason, on my new company, Posted, because I think it's a bigger vision, I chose a C Corp. S Corp, you don't really need to worry about. This is more of a tax election for small businesses. Okay, moving on to your taxes and your bookkeeping. This is something that I'm absolutely terrible about. As a young founder, I just want to scale. I don't really plan on doing my books, saving taxes, all that stuff. And again, this is why I have Doola, because they do all of this for you. They file your taxes. They keep your books nice and clean. All of your documents in one place. And anytime you need to speak to them, you can actually book a consultation. You can chat with their support very quickly. And keeping your books clean, doing your taxes is the most important part when it comes to exiting. Because when someone plans on buying your company, they're going to want to see every little detail. Where's the money going? Where's it being spent? If your books aren't clean, you will not succeed in exiting your company. I'm going to say that again. If your books aren't clean and you don't know exactly what your revenue is, what your profit is, what your assets are, you will have a very hard time exiting. You will not be able to negotiate, and you will get a worse price when you plan on selling your company. And not to mention, just for general growth, it is so important to know your numbers to the T so that you can scale effectively and confidently. Okay, now we're going to cover contracts for your developers, your designers, and your general contractors. If you are outsourcing development, design, or anything else, contracts are a non-negotiable. You need to protect yourself, your business, your idea, and your reputation. You need to make sure that if you are working with a developer, the code belongs to you and the idea belongs to you, not them. And this means a couple things. You need to set up your contracts correctly. And to do that, I advise you to get a lawyer. Don't listen to me. I'm not going to give you advice on how to set up your contracts because they're always going to be different depending on your use case, right? If your lawyer is ChatGPT, good luck, brother. And look, to keep everything clean, especially if you bring people onto your team, you want to hire them as contractors. This is typically the best route if you're a smaller company, if you're a startup. Keeps everything cleaner to have them as a contractor instead of an employee. Just make sure in the contracts with your contractors, the deliverables and the services are outlined clearly. And NDAs. Look, when you're interviewing developers, designers, or whoever else, and you're trying to figure out who to hire, who to bring on before you sign the real contracts, having them sign an NDA is an easy way to protect yourself. And if you're afraid of your idea getting stolen from a developer on Upwork or whatever, just have them sign an NDA. It's not a big deal. You can download an NDA template. NDAs are very straightforward. Download a solid template. Again, consult your legal advisor. Send them an NDA, have them sign it, and you should be free to share your idea. And look, I want to emphasize too, have faith in people in the world. I've worked with so many people on the internet that I haven't met in person. I've hired people off Upwork and any other site you can imagine. Very rarely are they stealing my idea. Never has that happened to me. And the idea is not what matters. The execution of your idea is what matters the most. Okay, now let's talk equity. This is where a lot of founders mess up because they don't have a long-term vision for their company. Your equity is the most important part of your business. Again, let's keep a long-term vision. Eventually, we want to build this business to be massive and hopefully exit the company, or again, bring on investors. So the cap table and the way you distribute equity in your company is so very important. And I myself have fallen into the trap of, having a partner that's my friend and I trust them and we go 50-50. That does not work out. If you're going to give equity out, go in with a plan. You need a cap table and you need to structure it correctly. Your cap table is your ownership breakdown. It's going to include you, your co-founders, your partners, your investors, your advisors, whoever you bring onto the company, and it's going to show how much equity they have. And look, when you're splitting equity or you're bringing someone on to help you with the business, do not give away too much equity too soon. And look, there's a nice balance here, right? You don't want to be stingy. You want to motivate your employees for the long term. And how do you do that? Is vesting schedules. The standard is a 4-year vesting schedule with a 1-year cliff. Now, here's what that means. And this is exactly what I do in my current company, Posted. This is how I give my employees equity in the company. A 1-year cliff means they have to work with your company for 1 full year before they unlock any equity at all. Now, this is so very important because so many founders bring on partners too early and they just give them the equity all up front. What's their incentive to work at your company if you do that? Do not do that. Have a clear vesting schedule. So there's a 1-year cliff. They get 0 until that 1 year. And at that first year, they typically unlock a larger portion. Let's say if you're giving away 10%, after year 1, they might get 5, right? And then you have a 4-year total vesting schedule. So you give them 5 at year 1, and then year 2, they unlock 2% more. Year 3, they unlock 2% more. Year 4, they unlock 2% more. And you want to stretch the equity out so that they are locked in for the long term. And if anything happens in the meantime, let's say they join your company in month 6, they bug out and they leave the company. You're protected because you didn't give away any equity. You want to make sure that people are willing to put in the effort in your company if you're going to be giving equity away. And look, you should always keep this in mind and you should always think to yourself, is this person worth giving equity to? Are they a permanent employee? Or should I just pay them on a monthly or salary basis, right? Think about this before you bring someone onto your company and you give them equity. And look, I have to give a shout out to Michael Seibel from Y Combinator. He broke down how much equity to give out and exactly how to do it perfectly. I highly recommend you go and watch this video. It taught me so much about vesting, giving equity to my potential partners. Highly recommend you go and watch that video. I'll leave a link in the description. And finally, App Store compliance and legal pitfalls. Look, there are rules that Apple abides by. Apple outlines this, and I've linked their 3 websites here if you want to go take a look. But they have guidelines for basically everything revolving apps and being an Apple developer, and Google does as well. You cannot do anything sketchy on your app. If you try some black hat tactic, or you're lying on your paywall, or your app is a scam or whatever, they will take you off the App Store. They will take you off the App Store and they will permanently ban your developer account. Whatever money you have in there is gone. I've seen it happen to others. Do not let it happen to you, right? Review these guidelines. Apple does a very good job at reviewing apps. And if you cross one of these guidelines, they will not allow your app into the store and they will give you feedback. It's not like if your app doesn't pass review the first time, they're going to ban you. So don't worry about that. They're typically very gracious. They will let you know where you're messing up and tell you to fix it. Another thing, you will absolutely need a privacy policy, a terms of service, and a contact us page on your website and on your app listing. Now, Termly is an easy way to set up all of this stuff. They will build you terms of service, they will build you a privacy policy, and they can generate it for you here. They give you a nice little piece of code that you can copy and paste in your website, and this will auto update. Termly will keep you compliant when it comes to your privacy policy and your terms and conditions. You absolutely need these 2 tools. You need Doula to set up your LLC, to keep up with your taxes and your bookkeeping, keep your books nice and clean, and you need Termly to generate a privacy policy and terms of service. If you are starting, building, or even scaling your mobile app, I dropped a full guide, a full 1-hour guide on how I build, scale, and exit mobile apps. I've done it a couple times now, so go check out the video. If you are interested in or already building an app of your own and you want to connect with other founders in the space who are already doing 10, 50, upwards of $100,000 per month, you should join our App Founder group call. The link to join the group call is in the description.